with like this, well, with the story of how you transitioned from like books to the current engineering startup that you have, because it's like an interesting change that not a lot of people experience. So yeah, I would just like you to share the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me on the podcast and great to catch up again, Emiliano. So, throughout my career, I've basically had two lives, and both lives didn't really know much about the other. So, on one part, like as you know, I did a podcast for I don't know 7 years or something. We used to read a book a week. We used to interview authors. We commercialized the podcast. We wrote a best-selling book, everything like that. And that was like my side hustle thing I did for a while. So, even before I did the podcast, I was doing lots of different things on weekends, like trying to build any sorts of random businesses and stuff like that. Most of them just didn't work out and was just like total failures. But the podcast was something that was quite successful. So I was running that, and we can dig into both sides more at some stage. But the other one was the whole time I was working as a structural engineer. So I was like doing a classic corporate styled career. So I started at a big tier one engineering firm called WSP. It's the world's biggest engineering firm. And following that, I was always interested in a niche of engineering, which was taller timber buildings. So timber, it's like the only competitor to concrete or steel that's out there. And concrete and steel, it's a legacy material. And timber's really the competitor. And at my university, the lecturer said the future's going to be in sustainable building materials. So like looking around it, I was always had inspiration from like Elon Musk, like a lot of people do in the car industry. So I was thinking, well, is the next big thing in materials innovation, but for our buildings? So for my whole career, I started broadly working in concrete, steel, and timber, but then I did a lot of things, took a lot of risks, I guess, in my career to keep going in the direction of my interest there. And for example, like I can go into stories that were quite pivotal. First year I was like tapping the shoulders of the directors as a first year grad to do some random projects that was in the direction of my motivation and stuff like that. But doing things so far out of the box, I ended up getting closer and closer to my passion on that side, which was like timber engineering. Long story short, we can dig further on both of them, but like I probably, the idea of the skill stacking from, I think, what's his name? How to fail at everything and win almost big. Scott Adams.
Not sure I know him.
Scott Adams, but it's like the idea of a skill stack and combining with Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours. It's like what can you end up getting to a point where you're very unique? Robert Greene talks about this as well in Mastery, but it's like, what is the unique skill soup that you are the only one in the world who has a mix of experiences that no one else has? And then at that point, maybe you can find a problem in the world that maybe you're the only one who can solve, and you can start a business around that. You've got a moat from day one because you're building something that is so unique to your own DNA that is your protection and scalability and everything like that. So long story short, there's probably lots of angles we can go from there, but it was like the two paths, and they obviously came together in building a business in this. And the podcast, obviously reading so many books and stuff like that has been critical to knowing how to operate as a CEO, leading teams, stuff like that.
Yeah, it sounds like it was some sort of like convergence between the two paths, because like you were doing this like podcast with Ashton, who was already on the show, and then like you were also like working on this corporate job, which like merged to lead you into this new path that you have. And like during that stage when they were starting to converge, like those two different worlds, what do you think was like, what were some signs that you started to notice that those two were starting to merge? Like, for example, one thing you just said is like this, not habit, skill stacking thing. And so it's like, what things led you to realize that those were starting to combine in your head?
Yeah, it's like, the Steve Jobs quote, you can only connect the dots looking backwards, not forwards. I don't know, that's probably a pretty famous quote, but like throughout my career at the start, I was just collecting random dots. And then from now, looking back, it's a very clear delineation. But as you're going along at the start, just collecting dots, you don't know the relevance of everything, you know. So it's like, from my perspective, it's like, and I'm going to again keep referencing books because we both love books, and it's like a big part of who I am as well. But the book The Alchemist, for example, it's like the core idea in that book is like if you just keep following your heart, listening to your heart, then you'll never go wrong, essentially. And sometimes if you think about that book, there's the most interesting part of that book is in the end when he's like controlling the sands, controlling the winds. The most interesting is the two failures along the way, because like he's following his heart, but there's two times when the first time he gets robbed and he loses everything. And in that moment, he can decide to go back to where he was and still have a comfortable life as a farmer. But in that moment, he goes, all right, nah, I've got some weird thing going on towards these pyramids. Let's keep going. So he kept on going. That's quite interesting. But the other really interesting one was where I think before he got to the pyramids, he was quite successful as a crystal shop merchant or something like that. And that's equally interesting because he was successful and thought, nah, I'm going to leave everything I've built so far. There's something in my heart heading me in that direction. And then he lost it all again. But this time was proactive choice. So, it's a similar thing to the crystal shop merchant, right? Like for me, it was, I had a pretty well-paying job. We had the podcast going quite well. Me and Astro would really enjoyed what we're doing, but at some stage it's like something is pulling me in this direction. And I forget the quotes off by heart in that book, but it's like, it is the idea that every time you follow your heart, it's going to lead you in a good place. And it might take 10 years of failures before you get there. Like there's plenty of people out there who've done, it takes a long bloody time sometimes, especially when you're starting out. And usually, from my perspective, it's like it's following your heart, but mix that with where the discomfort is, because if you're choosing something that looks like work for others, but for you, it's still hard, like really hard, but easier because there's something about you that enjoys it more, then like, again, that's I think the thing to keep going towards. And, but yeah, so early days, like from the business idea, I was like, I've never thought too far ahead. I was like, there's something pulling me in this direction. There's this interesting problem I was solving. Like quite specifically, I was everyone builds spreadsheets. I was building spreadsheets to do engineering problems, but every engineer around the world was building the same spreadsheets because it's a new category. And then I was like, all right, surely there's a software solution out there. Put a job up online for someone to help build software around it. That was like, not thinking too far ahead. And then all of a sudden, climbing up a mountain, like it just got clearer and clearer what we were building. But like, yeah, not just following the heart, to answer your question, Emiliano, I think I think that always works.
I like that you use that example because that's like talking about that kind of books. So like The Alchemist, and I want to dive into The Alchemist in a minute, but like talking about those books, you usually think of people who read them as people who read them and who like actually integrate the lessons into their lives, as people who are more into like maybe yoga things and I don't know anything but like engineering and science. So like that's something that I that I like about how you shared this, because it's like how, again, two apparently different worlds get combined and how they can be connected in some way. Again, talking about connecting the dots. And yeah, that book was special for me because I was reading it last year when I was backpacking. So like in the first month or the first 2 months as I was backpacking, and I had no real idea of what I was gonna do beyond just like those months of like traveling. I was just like, okay, I am enjoying this. I am missing home. I am missing like people. I'm missing maybe like food. I am like uncertain about what I will be doing with my life after the trip or things like this. But like I enjoyed reading the stories of the character, and it's interesting that you bring this to like parts of the book, because like in the first one you could consider that he was like in some sort of comfortable place because he was a farmer, and so he could return. I mean, it was not maybe the greatest place, but it was like an okay place. and on the other hand, the other situation where he also decided like to follow his vision and his heart. He was in this other more successful stage where you could usually just be like, okay, I'm done with everything. I already know everything. So like with this two, which do you feel like resonates more with when you took the leap to like start your own business?
Yeah, I think it's like a progressive. It was like a progressive journey. So I was doing the podcast in parallel with the business for a fair while, and then eventually it just got all consuming. The business was always on my mind 24/7, like literally as I go to sleep. It was just absolute obsession, and I just couldn't get it out of my mind, you know. And it's like to tie some patterns in different books and ideas together. I think it's similar to like in an adjacent way, you know, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's a similar I think it's a similar concept. It's like when inspiration strikes, you know, it's like inspiration is like an external spirit that captures you, and in those moments you've just got to go, can I swear? Just like fucking let's go. You know what I mean? And it's like, and it won't. And for the people who don't listen to that inspiration as well, it'll just go. You know what I mean? So even through the books, I was like, all right, something's caught me an external idea here, and I've just got to go all in. So it's like similar to listening to your heart, but it's like that's what progressively got me. And then I was like, all right, let's go. And then it's kind of pretty woo-woo stuff in a sense that I'm not a woo-woo guy normally, but like when I quit my job, so the bigger moment was probably quitting my full-time job, because that was my main salary basically to pay the mortgage and stuff like that. But yeah, when I quit that, and the podcast and book sales was like helped with a bit of runway, but not as much as the quitting the job. And but yeah, as soon as I started doing that, I was paying a small team, bootstrapping. We hadn't raised external investment at this stage. And somehow money just kept appearing in my account. And I got, it obviously was from real things, like real work I was doing, but the timing of everything was absolutely ridiculous. I just got, looking back on it, it was such a stupid thing or irrational thing to quit the job and do such a big project. Because now it's a software that's really hard to build is what we're doing essentially. And the naivety of doing that at the start, but for some reason, someone just appeared along the way. It's like the hero's journey. There's always those helpers that come. All of a sudden, one of my best mates for a while, another mate called Ringo, he had networks with investors. I hadn't even thought about the venture capital thing whatsoever at that stage. And then all of a sudden, that opened up at the right time. The right investors popped up who believed in our vision. And then we raised capital, grew the team, and then all of a sudden it just kept on going. But I think it's just a progressive thing. And it's like, and it's still like, even right now, it's like still there's decisions in the business where it's like, all right, what's my gut telling me? And usually it's that, again, that mixture of discomfort alongside that inspiration. And there's probably like, there's always in people who, like yourselves who are just finishing high school, at some stage there's always a disclaimer as well, because you know that idea of following your passion as well. If I didn't do boring engineering for so long, the boring part, and actually get to a point where I was at a really at an interesting point with that, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing, you know? So it's like, it's a risk. There's a risk always at the start. I remember when I was at WSP, which was the major engineering company, I was that close to quitting my job one day because I was like, F you, I'm going to go all in on podcasting. And I'm very happy I didn't do that at the time.
You can swear in the podcast. That's what I was telling Ashton as well. I want to keep this podcast like as authentic as possible. So like, just express yourself however you feel. But like, that's interesting. That's interesting because like I wanted to dive into these two things. So like obsession and intuition, and into your thoughts and the experience with those. Because I mean, it's interesting to think about those, like as you were saying, that you were doing something like boring and very technical for a long time, and that eventually led you like to this point where you had this like advantage over other people because you were like unique in the sense with this skill set and knowledge. and you also had like this fuel towards a vision. But yeah, how have obsession and intuition, what has been the role of those in your life?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's like very clear now because it's all consuming in my identity in a business we're building now. But like at the very start, it's not as clear, right? I think it's like I feel like the universe rewards you if you take risk and are all in. You know, if you're trying to do something, whether it's traveling, just go hard at it. You know, or like whatever it is, and I think that's what the religions talk about as well. I think that is the idea of faith. It's like if you follow it, you go all in, something will be good from it. You know, so it's like that's what it's been like from the start. I think it's like you know, and that alongside attitude, and even if you work like I used to clean up horse shit at a stable when I was younger, and I used to work in factories, and like very easily you could. There's two ways you could look at jobs like that, or any job that you've got. One way is like, how boring is this? I'm looking forward to the weekend. The other way is like, I'm going to try and do as good a job as I can at this. And it's like that idea of a live time versus dead time. And if you treat everything like a gift, whatever you're doing, and treat it like a lifetime, there's always something to learn from it. I think that's the thing, that attitude. If things aren't clear exactly what your vision or purpose is, I think that attitude is what's going to get you really far. And if you keep doing that, I mean, I look back on those jobs and like, thank God I had those jobs because they were really hard. Like I used to working in McDonald's was like the hardest job ever. I went home in tears one day, but you know, that sets the benchmark for the rest of your career as well, what hard work is. And you know, we're just going to be grateful, especially like us having a laptop now and being able to do a podcast together like this. There's just so many parts of the world where that opportunity that we're given isn't for everyone, you know. Even the gift of life, right? Like you got a clock ticking. We're going to die at 80 or 90 years old. It's so improbable to be here. So it's like having a right attitude, even if bad things happen. Having said that, I haven't had like awful things. I haven't had like, you know, very close people die or anything like that. So it's easier said than done. But as best you can when something bad happens, just bringing the right attitude always and just getting the most out of the moment. And I think that attitude is what will protect early, and then over time, following your heart, things will get clearer and clearer about what you're put on earth to do, essentially.
Well, in your case, following your heart led you right now to do something like very difficult and very different than what you had ever done. So like doing things like raising capital and then like leading a whole team of engineers and like pursuing your own project on new, well, not necessarily new because you were already like doing engineering stuff, but like on a very niche thing. And like, what do you think about like following your heart and doing hard things? Because like sometimes maybe like for example, the work that I've done personally has been like mostly online. I have had the chance to do some things like physically, and like I would say that those things that I have had where I have had the need to like move around and like then wake up very early and pick up some things and take them to another place. Like work like that has been probably the most difficult that I have done compared to like just doing things online. But like still, when I have done all of these things online with that other job that I was doing and these things, my heart has led me to those. But that's not necessarily always the path of like where you need to endure something. And so where I'm going with this is like, as you were saying, an important thing is like to go through this tough stages so that you like endure personally. What do you think is a good way to like not necessarily balance, but to have some harmony in both? Like if you haven't gone through a lot of hardship, to use your heart to go through hardship and to improve. Like what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a great word there, man. And I think it's something you've obviously thought a lot about as well. But like enduring, because it's like easier said than done. Just follow your heart. But like when you're like when you're just starting out in your career. It's like you got no optionality, right? You got no leverage on the world economy whatsoever. You're starting from scratch, and then as you build leverage, you can start having optionality. So it's like enduring that period where you've got to build value in yourself, whatever that is yeah, it's a difficult balance. It's like that career capital idea from Cal Newport when his book so good they can't ignore you. Like his book basically says the opposite of what everything we've been talking about right now, which is always the interesting thing in books, right? It's like you go down one pathway, you believe one thing, and then another book is clearly articulate in stating the opposite, right? But the idea of this book, which is probably worth talking about to just balance out the rest of the conversation we've had, is exactly that. So at the very start, you've got no career capital. Following your passion is dangerous. You shouldn't do it. Like the first thing you should do is get really good at something so you've got leverage. And then once you've got what he calls career capital, only then you can trade it in for the things that give you a fulfilling career, which is, autonomy. You can choose what you want to work from Nicaragua, you want to work from Switzerland, whatever you ever want to do. You can choose it for mastery. Well, you could build your skills, and mastery in itself is something that is really intrinsically motivating. And then the third one is purpose, of course. So it's like you build up the leverage, then you got the optionality to actually go down that pathway. So it's like, to your point, that's equally true. So at the start, building career capital is a good thing. And I feel like there's always a risk of people, brains like mine, maybe like yours, I'm not sure. Like Astro's one of my best mates, but like, people who want to do something in the world with their lives, do something exciting. It's like there is a archetype of person who in their early 20s really want that, but what they end up doing sometimes is starting something, following that, quitting, starting again, quitting, starting again, quitting. You know what I mean? And it's like sometimes they end up being a collection of dots that make a lot of sense to something bigger eventually, but some people, that's all it is, and then over time they actually don't build leverage because they actually haven't gone deep on something. And it's like that idea of like if a woodpecker pecks 100 different trees, it doesn't get anything. If a woodpecker pecks on one tree 100 times, it gets lunch. So it's like, again, there's no right answer to a lot of things, right? But it's like, it's important to understand that's the case. And in that moment, when I think about when I was at the big engineering firm and I was like not enjoying it and I was being disrespected by my boss, which is like, in hindsight, it's like just an ego thing when you're a young engineer. But it's like, I had no right to have of course I was getting disrespected, but I was just visualizing saying, fuck you, I'm out if you don't like what I'm doing here or something. And then like, but if I was that close, like if she pushed me a little bit more that day, I would have done that. And if I had done that, I would have been in that category, like I was saying earlier, where I would have been probably pecking a lot of trees, and maybe the podcasting would have gotten more successful and that was it. But in hindsight, sticking it out in that case built the career capital as well, which was like absolutely critical. And, eventually I was named got awards in engineering categories in Australia, a bunch of them. And a lot of that was because of the diversity of the skill stack of having entrepreneurial skills, mainly around marketing and stuff like that. And it was like a very unusual mix of having an engineering brain doing engineering, but with the mix of all this other book stuff as well.
No, yeah, makes sense. And again, as we were talking before I started the recording, I asked you like on personal advice for me because I think that I kind of resonate with this, or I like the self perception that I have is that like I can create a combination of those two for myself like you have because of my personal experience over my years doing online things like with marketing mostly, and right now through podcasting, and then like with this other interest that I'm trying to pursue and to grow on related to like technology and engineering. And yeah, that's interesting that you say like about that you talk about this like very pivotal moments or moments that almost become like pivotal moments, because as you were saying, like if he maybe had said like two more words to you, you would have had a very different path than the one you have. I haven't really thought about that perspective of like how like really starting something, dropping it, starting something different, and dropping it might not always end up in like connecting the points and doing something bigger. Well, what would you say is a good way to like really intentionally connect the dots? Maybe if you have, maybe there are two people, one who has done things that uh that like connect very intuitively, and another
Mm.
person that is like the other type of person who started something, dropped it, and again,
Yeah.
and did that again, and so that person might need to intentionally connect the dots or do something differently. Like for to that person, what would you say?
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting one. The way I think about this, and I used to think it like this. It's like when you're choosing a project to do, what is the what is the worst case scenario? So it's like, say if you're looking to do something and you work really hard at it, what is the worst case scenario? Something be come out of that if even if it doesn't have the best case scenario. So for example, that was a lot of the thinking around when we started the What You Will Learn podcast was like, all right, we're going to try and start a podcast. It's probably similar to what you're doing now. It's like best case scenario, if this podcast blows up, like, and people are really interested in my journey and resonates with the journey I'm going through for themselves, amazing. But worst case scenario is like if that doesn't happen, at least I'm having conversations, I'm building a network across so many different industries. So from that perspective, like a project like you're doing now is like worst case scenario is like absolutely excellent, you know? So it's like, I think that's probably the safest way to intentionally collect dots. And there are certain projects like this, like reading, like I think reading books, anything in that category, without doubt has long-term value. You know, if you're reading books, you're not going to be wasting your time. So I think it's like if you're looking to do a project, think about the worst case scenario. Are you going to learn a new skill? Like, for example, one of the dots I collected along the way, which was a failure, arguably, was I started after my first year of engineering, I built an online course for first year graduate engineers how to do structural engineering, and I built the course. I had to build online skills. Then for marketing, I did Facebook. I marketed in the Global Institute of the Institute of Structural Engineers. I did LinkedIn ads. I did Google ads. I only spent like maybe $5,000, which is a lot of money back then. It was all my money, to be honest. But in doing so, I learnt new skills, and I ended up being able to point to that as something I've done, even though no one knew, no one bought any things. And then I think about what I'm doing now. It's like all the marketing I'm doing now is very relevant, the paid advertising, to what I did along the way. So it's like if you're looking to do something new, you know, if you're going to build something, and you're better off maybe spending $5,000 on paid advertising and learning how to use each one of those platforms. And if no one buys it, like that's fine. You've built some skills, and then eventually those skills are going to start connecting into something. And when it comes, you've got again that unique skill stack, because not many from where I sit, and for everyone else it's different, but from where I sit, there wasn't many structural engineers who built those unique skills along the way, alongside those business skills, but also a niche category when it came to timber engineering. So I think, yeah, just limiting the downside on project selection at the start is probably a safe way to do that potentially.
No, yeah, like the part that is like a very important highlight to me is like this idea that like best case maybe something great comes out of that, and like worst case you learn something that adds to your unique skill set, and like as we
Exactly.
were saying, that might eventually connect to like make you a unique person that can solve like a very unique problem, and that led you to create CLT Toolbox. And so like I want to like dive into two more things, or well, yeah, two different topics through the rest of the conversation. Like the first
Yeah.
one, as I was sharing with you, I'm personally interested in different engineering related things, and so I want to dive into like what specifically you do with CLT and everything. And like secondly, I want to like dive into your perspective on like career building, the future, how AI is going to impact things for people in general, for entrepreneurs, for engineers. So yeah, but like let's first get into like your startup. So like I was first when Ashto shared what you were doing, I probably got into the website for like 2 or 3 times, and the combination of like not knowing what the word timber was and like and also like not really understanding many technical things led me to like not understand what the company was about. But
Yeah.
then after like researching with more calm and actually understanding what you do, I understand that this came like this well yeah, this software that you have came as a result of like trying to target the problem of pollution overall, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So you got like there's two problems basically. It's like the category of greenhouse gas emissions, concrete and steel. It's above 10% of the world's emissions. That's tackled by the category of mass timber. Mass timber is the only renewable material that sequesters carbon out of the atmosphere that can actually take on concrete and steel. And there's other benefits like speed of construction, off-site construction, all of these things that being an off-site material. But in that category, there's like, what is the limiting factor and the bottleneck that unlocks that category to actually accelerate itself? And that's basically what we're solving. So that is mainly the engineers. So engineers, it's not taught at university, and there's no software out there to make it easy. So we basically make tools for the people who make those buildings like really straightforward to do. So on our platform, we've got two sides. We've got engineers, we help them design these buildings, but the other side, we've got suppliers of products. So if you're supplying a different product, so there's, it might not mean anything for those listen, but you got cross-laminated timber, glue-laminated timber, you got screws, you got dowels, you got anchors, you got all these products that need to get designed with, and we basically allow those suppliers to list their products on our platform. So as you can maybe understand, there's like a two-sided effect where you've got a market dynamic with network effects, where you got more engineers on the platform means more value for suppliers, more suppliers on the platform means more value for engineers. And that's like the nucleus of part of our business model as well, which is scaling. So, and the way we're doing that is like we're scaling across different product categories in manufactured buildings. So, you got in terms of like, you've probably read Crossing the Chasm. It's like any business, you've got to pick a niche and win a niche at the start. So you put an overwhelming force into a specific need in the market, dominate that category, over service that category, just so you've got a landing spot in the market, and then from there you can grow out. So CLT is just one product, but then we're growing out and solving the same problems across any building material that wants to be specified, because they're only going to, from a supplier's perspective, they invest hundreds of millions of dollars in manufacturing equipment, millions of dollars in product development. But at the end of the day, if it's not easy for an engineer to specify their product, all that investment's waste. So yeah, it's a unique dynamic we've found, and it's right now we've got customers on both sides, engineers and suppliers, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, UK, now US, Canada. So it's been a good I guess good start from zero to global traction in like 2 years basically.
On the like supplier side, I can understand like the incentives that they have to join the platform, because it's like quite obvious. It's like you're basically providing the market for them. But like on the side of the engineers, what advantages are there for them to build? Well, first of all, to learn to build using like mass timber, and secondly, to actually use it. Because like what I'm thinking is like it might vary depending on the country that we are at, but like I don't know if in Australia it might be like a really good enough incentive just to make it like more ecologically better. But like what are the incentives overall for engineers?
Yeah, so if you go up the food chain, so it's pretty much in any industry, the decision making starts with where the money starts, basically. Like, who are the investors, who are the developers, like what are the goals of the investment? So for them, it's like for an office, we want financial, sustainable, human. Some it's based on whatever it is. Then it goes to the architect, and the architect goes, all right, this is how we're going to achieve your vision, developer. And all of this is pretty easy so far. It's just like, that looks good, let's decide. But then they'll engage an engineer. So an engineer, if the architect wants a timber building, a mass timber building to achieve the goals of what the developer wants, then the engineer right now needs to be able to design with all tools. If they're effective at their job, they need to say yes and not just say no to the timber option. They got to have all the tools to do it. So that's their incentive, is to like basically just be competent in their role in delivering what their customer needs. But up until this stage, like if we didn't exist in that moment, they've got to build maybe 500 hours of, well, we did a white paper on it, 500 hours of unpaid work building spreadsheets so they could actually build up their own infrastructure to do these designs. So it's like, from their perspective, we build the software, and all of a sudden, rather than saying no to their client, they can say, yes, we're confident we can do it. We've got the tools and the capabilities to take on this building type. So that's basically the dynamic from the engineers.
Okay, makes sense. How did this solution? Because it's a very not complex solution, but it's a very elaborated solution. It's not like just one thing that solves one problem. It's like many steps and things that together solve different problems. How did you start? Well, I guess that one answer to how you started like realizing this solution was viable and like connecting the dots was like through your experience, but like what specific like maybe business development and startup like methodologies helped you like to identify the actual problems, solutions for this market?
Yeah, it's a great question. So at the very start, there's a great book on any network effects business model out there. It's called The Cold Start Problem, and it goes into deep detail, like how does Uber start, like why do engineers care if there's no suppliers, why do suppliers care if there's no engineers, like how do you solve that core problem? Because when you get the network effects, you build the momentum. But at the very start for us, like what I did was I wrote a white paper essentially. So I interviewed maybe 25 suppliers and 25 different engineers, and I asked them the question, because I told you before, we got this category here, we all love this category. What are the bottlenecks that will accelerate this category? And the white paper is called Addressing the Bottlenecks to Unleash the Adoption of Mass Timber, or something like that. It was a pretty bit of a mouthful of a white paper, but in that I interviewed everyone. What are the problems? What are the problems? What are the problems? What are the problems? And then it ended up building a solution kind of in parallel. And the good thing is, like from a business development perspective, it's like once I had a solution, I had interviews with the first list of customers. I was like, hey, that problem you were talking about, here's your solution, right? And they're like, oh, well, okay, well, I'll throw down some money. So that's I think if anything, like you want to launch a business, like doing a white paper like that, it's a bit similar to podcasting, right? It's like people like to have their egos rubbed up a little bit to like, be on a podcast. Similar way when it comes to that. And then the second one was like what was being instrumental a bit further along the journey for us is we launched a free version of the platform, so free for engineers, and we basically made the free version match the existing competitors in the regions, because it was like a fragmented ecosystem. So we matched the free version with the ecosystem, meaning all the engineers sort of have to come into our platform to do the design. And then once you got the engineers, that's a lot of value to suppliers, of course. And then that's just a strategy of like solving the hard problem of the two-sided model, because once you got one side, you got value for the other, and then we kept going. So it's like, yeah, I think solving the network effect, the cold start problem, is probably our biggest achievement so far as a company. And then from there, you could just keep on growing. The hard part is like at the start, like no one cares, and you got to make people care essentially.
Before getting into the other topic I wanted to talk about, so like career and the future and those things, I would just like to know, how has it been for you to build this thing on like the very like different aspects that there are to this? So like you are the founder and CEO, so like to some extent you cannot be so involved in the technical part because you need to take care of the business, but at the same time you do need to have like a very technical background to understand the product. And then I've also seen that you are like very international, that you've got team in Indonesia, in Serbia, and like the UK. Like how's that expansion been for you? So like yeah, if you could just like share how this path has been for you, that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's another book that helped a lot here was the E-Myth Revisited. It is a famous business book, but the idea of like, you got the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician. So you got you start out as a technician because you're an engineer, but you need to be an entrepreneur to have vision, but you also need to be a manager to operate, right? So it's like maybe the manager one is the most interesting one here. And how do you actually grow up? Because basically what you're going to do is like build a function in the business to operationalize it, like, and that can be through a standard operating procedure or something. Then you onboard someone else to do it, and ideally they do a better job than you. That's probably if you've been successful, is like you bring someone else on, they're better than you. And from the very start, like I had put some jobs up online from using Upwork. You've probably used Upwork before or something like it. And I was lucky to find my first engineer was Lalisi in Ethiopia. And I gave her a task which was hard, like probably too hard for me. I was time poor, and she actually did a better job than me. So I'm like, holy shit, like what's going on here? And then there's a bit of contrarian play growing a team in Ethiopia, but like there's not many other tech companies like us there. So you got to pick the talent on the city. So yeah, so anyway, we raised capital, built a team around her, and we're getting like hundreds of applicants per job there coming out of uni with like perfect degrees and stuff. But that was like the engineering side. The software side, similar thing, put a job up online, found someone, and all these early shows, Lisi's co-founder in the business as well, and then Iksan, and so is Ringo, I mentioned earlier, but they all took a lot of risk at the start. Like she quit her job. So anyone who took a lot of risk in our vision was like, they're partly part of the founding team. Yeah, same with Iksan in Indonesia, build an operational system. Then we built an operational system on how we build the software. And eventually, as you go in and you do something, you just got to think bigger about how can you turn this into a system that doesn't need you. And you do that with every function of the business. Starts there technical, but then in sales, I've like got great help here with Ringo as well, who heads up our commercial side of the business. But again, it's like, what is the repeatable sales motion that you bring to engineers? Is it the top of funnel? Is it there's a book, $100 Million Leads by Alex Hormozy. It's absolutely insane, that book. Blew my mind. It's probably anyway. But like, what is the top of funnel lead generation? Is it cold outreach? Is it warm outreach? Is it paid ads? Whatever it is, then operationalize that. Then the next step is, what is your engineering demo? So as a CEO, you're in all of these at the start. It's like a really hard fucking work because there's no other way around it. And the team, as you're building a team, they need to, if you're asking them to put in hard effort, they need their leader to be putting everything they can into it, and joining the meetings and rocking up early or late, depending on different time zones, whatever it is. But building that operation. But again, taking a step back to what is the step we're doing here, operationalizing it. One of our company values is solve a problem once, use it many times. So it's like the idea of that is if you're doing something, solve it once, put it in a scalable way so it's repeatable across the rest of the team. And that sort of mindset is like the way, from my perspective, is like the best way to build a business, because you can operationalize it and you can scale out functions, you can scale out a team and everything like that.
And has there been any operationalization? Is that the word?
Yeah, operationally what? Sorry, so yeah.
No, what was the word you said?
Operationalize.
Operationalize.
Yeah.
So like, was there any operationalization to internationalizing the company, or was that just organically? Did that just happen organically?
That just happened really organically, and a lot of luck, to be honest. Like those team members, if it wasn't for those early team members, we wouldn't have been where we are today. Like they took on a lot of risk, and like we're just so amazing at what they did. So Marco as well in Serbia, like just randomly on Upwork, in hindsight, we did A/B test early team members. So I did go through different people online, and then eventually it stuck who was the best person. And I think where the luck came was like these were great technical operators we had in our team, but you don't know at the start if they're going to turn out to be great leaders. And that's the lucky part, because at the start you don't interview based on leadership, you interview based on technical ability. And turns out all of our early hires are incredible leaders of people. And then that's how we've got a head count of like 45 now, and they've got teams. So that was just organic and, dare I say, luck. But also because we're doing something so interesting, like for anyone who's like technical in engineering, anything like that, this is like a bit of a dream job, because like you just get to be in the weeds of building a really interesting product all day. And if you compare that to designing a building or something, it's just like much more interesting. So from that perspective, it's like been a great attractor of people, I'd say.
Okay. Now with this, I want to start getting into the other topic before like some rapid fire questions and wrapping up. So like we were talking before recording about the future, about like how career paths, about career paths, and I have also been like reflecting a lot of that with how that will look like in the future with AI. And so like, what is your perspective on like what is way in today's world to pick career and skill set effectively to be relevant in the future, both for like getting a job, like the people in your team, or for like people such as you, like having this unique skill set that allows you to build unique products.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's like, especially with AI, there's like no way around it. It's like such a big thing. It's being AI first in what you do. It's like and it's amazing how behind a lot of people are in integrating it into all their workflows. Essentially, within our team, I'm like constantly stressing to like be AI first in whatever you do. It's not like AI is going to come and take all our jobs from my perspective. I think it's an incredible tool that means you could be a more ambitious entrepreneur, basically, like what used to be a mid-level goal. You can probably raise that up by a factor of 5 now, and lower the cost as well. So I think it's just integrating it as a tool in everything you do. Can it be done in AI? Like I just had a new workflow that just came up yesterday. We had an investor chat yesterday on using Firefly's AI, and then like uploaded the transcript to ChatGPT and said, what are your thoughts on this? Do you reckon they'll invest? What are their biggest, why did they ask that question? And it turns out like some of the questions was like, there was layers to it that I didn't even realize. Like maybe they're worried about market depth in this thing here and that thing there. I'm like, so when I actually respond to their due diligence questions, it's going to be totally different, So it's like, maybe that would have been a blocker to get a no, but maybe that use of AI there is like the thing that will unlock investment from that strategic partner. So it's like just using it as a tool and being creative with it, and it's going to be an incredible enabler. It's like the future belongs to people who use AI basically as well as possible. And who knows where it goes in 10 years, who knows, but it's exciting.
So you would say,
yeah.
So you would say it's a very important skill to master, like using very different AI tools and like just implementing them for productivity.
Exactly. Being quick, being super quick, experimental with it as well. I reckon that's just huge. I don't have enough time. I wish I had more time to just experiment all day with it, but I think it's a good thing. Yeah.
Okay. And then like talking again about skills and about like which path to choose, what is like your advice given your experience for someone? So with this question, I'm really talking about myself.
Of course,
for someone who wants to like have a path similar to you, like building projects in different areas. So like with education and books, as you did with the What You Will Learn podcast, or with some technical things like you're currently doing. Maybe like I eventually also want to do something like travel related or like commerce related. So like for myself, I do see technology and engineering as one project that I would like to eventually like create something with, but like that's just like one of many projects that I want to create. So like what's your advice for a person like me?
Yeah, totally. What worked for me and is is like those moments of the career just sticking to a hard skill and then mixing it with the innovative side. You know what I mean? At the start, it's like that's what helps. That's what works for me. Like, so growing that skill set of engineering, even designing concrete buildings, that sort of stuff, and just doing as good a job at that as possible, but at the same time, you know, working really hard on the weekends and stuff like that to build an alternative dot, so to speak. I think that's what worked for me. So if it was me in your shoes, and of course you got to do what you got to do, sort of thing, it'd be like definitely just stick to the, well, for me, not for you, just not be afraid of like a boring start to your career, basically. Like engineering related, whatever it might be. If it's the more traditional it looks like, probably the more likely it is if you've got a unique brain that implements new technology, maybe you can provide something unique to that. So it could be the case that something boring is a positive signal. But in any case, it's like getting career capital and leverage, and a lot of the time it's doing the things that are somewhat hard in some way.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I appreciate that advice. Because I've been really asking questions like this to a lot of people recently, so I appreciate like different
It's a hard, it's a
perspectives, and
hard,
especially.
it's a hard answer because part of me, like, because we were saying follow your heart so much earlier, you know, which is a true thing, but it's such a nuanced thing that I like traveling, so let's just go traveling, or someone else, I like yoga, like you're saying with the Alchemist, someone who reading that and just does yoga all day, and it's like, it's such a nuanced thing because it's easy to read it like that, but it's like, but it's the nuance is in like that, but in something boring that unlocks into a bigger vision eventually because you keep at it. So I don't know. It's the world, man. Life's interesting. There's no black or white books on any of this stuff, and a lot of the books, as we know, contradict each other entirely, and that's what life is sometimes.
Well, yeah, just some last fast questions I want to ask. These are three questions I usually ask my guests. And so the first one is like, which is a book, movie, music album, online blog, whatever that you have like read or consumed recently that you really enjoyed or found valuable and that you would like to share?
Yeah. Oh God, I forgot the name of this. The book I just read, I forgot the name of it, but the one I'd say, which is similar to our conversation, there's a lot. I loved, I do love Robert Greene's books really much. So it's like the idea of mastery. I think that book's like really on point for what we're talking about. And then his other one, Laws of Human Nature, which just like slaps you up a lot, basically in you know, you're reading the book and it just talks objectively about you, and you realize if you've got traits of narcissism, if you've got traits of envy, if you've got traits of your dark side, like you read that and just realize that there's a lot of darkness in you. And then it's actually a powerful thing to actually control those parts of you. So anything Robert Greene, we spoke about The Alchemist, that's a great book. I could go on and on about books, but the shit they never taught you is a good book that unlocks the lot.
It was a great book, yeah. Yeah, I agree with it. Then the second thing is like, is there anything you have learned or discovered recently that you think is like useful and valuable? It can be like really anything, any idea, any lesson, any AI platform, anything that you have discovered.
Gotcha. Yeah, man, just keep going. Like, it's just boring and cliche, but I think just AI is moving at that faster pace. So it's like just being on top of that is a good investment of your time. That alongside reading books, but who knows? I think books are always going to be evergreen, even with AI, like to actually go deep into a topic. But books and AI, you'll never go wrong.
Okay. And then the last thing is like, well, yeah, my podcast is called Coffee Lounge. And so I like to ask, what is your favorite type of coffee? It can be like a specific drink, a specific coffee bean, whatever, and your specific situation in which you like to drink coffee.
That's good, man. I drink way too much coffee, but like small, strong almond latte. So Melbourne is known as the coffee snob we're coffee snobs in Melbourne. So if you love coffee, you're going to love Melbourne. But I've also, my local cafe, I've been lucky for some reason. They call it the Adam, like my name. It's like a special coffee where it's just like an almond milk half full latte or something, and they just like call it the Adam, and they left it on like prices from 2 years ago or something. So if you ever go to the 38 South Cafe in Seaford, ask for the Adam. They'll find it hilarious. But yeah, usually almond milk latte, extra shot.
Cool. Yeah, I'll try to include that in the description of the episode. And well, yeah, thanks for coming, man. I really appreciate you and your
Thank
time.
you so much, man. That was awesome. Keep up the great work with your podcasting, and yeah, always impressed by you, man. And look forward to catching up in person one day when it makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, man.